Hey everybody, we are officially live. I'm so excited to dive into our third mentor workshop of the semester. If you are watching the recording of this, feel free to fast forward by around 7-ish minutes. If you're watching live, thanks for being here. Introduce yourself in the chat. I'm excited to dive in. So I'm going to send this link over to my colleague Jolene to send out to all the mentors, and we will get started shortly. But anyways, I'm excited to dive in. So Jolene's got the link. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Alrighty. Jolene has sent out the YouTube link. So you are tuning in live for the live stream. I'm glad to have you all here. It's a little bit darker now that we got daylight. Actually, live, I'm so excited. Now that we got daylight savings time happening. So, hey, Nasilia, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for saying hey. Um, Well, sweet. Well, gosh, it's crazy to think we're already in November. Nasilia, and really for anybody else who's tuning in now, did y'all do anything fun for Halloween? And do you have any fun November plans? Post in the comments. I'd love to learn. So I've got a baby. He's a little over 7 months old now. So it was his very first Halloween. We dressed him up as a pumpkin. It was very cute. So anyways, I think Halloween's one of those fun holidays when you got little kids and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a lot of fun. But anyways, introduce yourself in the chat, where you're tuning in from. If you did anything fun for Halloween, if you did do something fun for Halloween, or if you dressed up as anything, post in the comments. I'd love to learn. What did you dress up as for Halloween? I whipped out the old Bavarian lederhosen, and I don't know. I just dressed in a lederhosen. I thought it would be fun. I don't have a lot of costumes. I did have a great Bob Ross costume from a few years ago. You know, you got a good costume for Halloween when you get a lot of comments on it, and people like remember you for that costume. So I don't know. Do y'all have any? Post in the comments. Do y'all have any costumes that were like your go-to costume? Um, that like everybody remembers you as? Post in the comment. I'd love to learn. So, Nasili, you don't celebrate Halloween, but from when you gather, many children enjoyed the evening. Oh, that's fun. Henry, happy to be here. Halloween was nice. Solvang. Where's Solvang, Henry? You are a bar wench because I used my costume from Carmen. I love it. Good for you, Brittany. That's fun. What is a bar wench? I just like the concept of it. I just think that sounds funny. Let me just make sure. Let me double check with Jillian, see if those emails went out. They have. That's great. Cool. So we're gonna get started in about 4 minutes. California, Solvang, California. Let me look that up real quick. Where is that? Solvang. Oh, that's cool. That's a cool part of California. That's like right in between San Francisco and Los Angeles. That's pretty cool. It's like in the curvature of the Pacific Ocean. That looks like a really cool spot. That's sweet. I bet it's like great weather, Henry, all year round, I would imagine. It seems like one of those places in the country where it's like perpetually 70 degrees and like beautiful all the time. I don't know. Oh, okay, Brittany, I like the old Western bartender. Hey, Lorena, welcome. Hey, Rosava, welcome. I was just asking, just to catch everybody up, if anybody, hey, Simran, welcome. I was just, to catch y'all up, I was just asking if anybody dressed up as anything fun for Halloween. Post in the comments if you did. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Hey, Arthur, welcome, welcome. So I'm just looking at the comments. Alrighty, welcome, welcome, welcome. So we'll get started in just a minute and we'll get going. So, um, I always like to jump the gun, so I'm not going to jump the gun here. So, if anybody, the pre-workshop activity was if you dressed up as a Halloween costume, what did you dress up as? Dressed up as an inflatable Teletubby. Very nice, Imran. That's cool. You know, I've seen a lot more of those inflatable, whether it be dinosaurs or Teletubbies or SpongeBob, seem to be popular in like a relatively low, like mass low frills. You don't have to be putting paint on yourself or anything like that. It seems like a very efficient costume. It's like you're very much into it, but at the same time, you know, getting into it and getting out of it doesn't seem like as much of an ordeal as like doing the face paint and all the other things that come with like a very intensive costume. But I don't know, that's just my take on it. Anyways, it is officially 6 o'clock here in Austin, Texas. 7 o'clock on the East Coast, 4 o'clock on the West Coast, 5 o'clock in Mountain Time. Let's get started. So we're about to enter into our third workshop of the semester. So um, essentially what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover suggested questions you can ask that to your mentee to build a deeper relationship, really how to get your mentee to open up more to you, how to help your mentee with accountability, and then suggested questions that get them thinking about and suggested questions that get them thinking about accountability, and then how to help your mentee broaden their perspective. So really those are the big things we're going to cover today. um, I've covered this before, but I always want to reiterate this. Strategy, story, state are the three keys to being a successful mentor. State, physically, what do you come in? I know we had daylight savings time, so it might be easy for us to I don't know, rest on our laurels or, maybe get a little depressed because the sun's going down a little bit earlier. But ultimately, what we know is that physically, whatever state we come into our mentor meetings is what is more likely to going to manifest itself from that mentor relationship. People read body language much more than they actually read into the words you say. And so ultimately, if we can come into a mentor conversation, whether it be via video chat or however we're communicating, if we can get ourselves into a physical state conducive for being a successful mentor, we are much more likely to manifest the positive outcome from that relationship. The second key is your story. What is a story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? If you tell yourself a story that you're going to be a successful mentor, you're much more likely to be a successful mentor. But if you let self-doubt or, a negative attitude about being a mentor, creep into your mind, you're much less likely to be a successful mentor. So really, the stories we tell ourselves are really critical for our ability to actually achieve the outcomes we want to achieve, especially as a mentor. And then the strategies. That's where we can start diving into this. By this juncture, you should have already met with your mentee, or if you got your first mentor meeting called, it should be scheduled soon. This is when we can start diving into strategies. So this can look at things like mock interviews, reviewing resumes, reviewing cover letters, making introductions if they make sense, reviewing a student's LinkedIn. I mean, there's so many different things you can do to help guide your mentee. But this is where we can start getting into the more of the tangible things that we can be really, really helpful with. And so strategy is typically something that comes as the relationship progresses over time. So let's talk about building a deeper relationship with your mentee. I suggested this last time, but I really, really want to upon you the importance of asking this question because it is a great question to ask. And this question is, Tell me your story starting with kindergarten. This may seem like a lot of detail, but it gives you a lens into their personal goals and drives, especially for a young professional. Maybe they're in their 20s and they're figuring it out. Having them answer that question of, tell me your story starting with kindergarten can really give you a good idea as to who they are, where they've come from, what they're working towards. It really can be a powerful question to ask and really just a great way to get to know your mentee deeper. I then like to ask, what is your dream career and how do you plan on getting there? And I like to ask that question because by asking that question after asking where they've come from, what their story is starting with kindergarten, and then jumping into dream career, you're able to kind of help blend of where they came from to where they're going. And then I like to create an intermediary step. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I like to ask that question because then it gives us a bite-sized chunk. I think sometimes, not always, but sometimes young professionals can get really caught up into these visions of grandeur, but like forget the intermediary steps that go along the way with it, where it's like, oh, I want to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and I want to be making tens of millions of dollars a year and I want to be, vacationing off of the coast of Australia or whatever their career aspirations are, whatever they may be. But then there's like how do we get to that point? And so I want to, no matter how big, grand, or amazing a mentee's dream career is, um, we need to set up a plan for how we're going to get there. And so if we can break it down to like, where do we need to be in 5 years to know that we're on or off track towards this goal? That can be incredibly helpful for your mentee to contextually put together what is going on and what's going on next in their lives and their careers. Um, I'm also a big fan of this set of questions. Ask them to tell you a story about a time when they really wanted something, and they ended up realizing that they didn't really want it that much, but actually wanted something else. Regardless of whether or not they got it, what did they learn from that scenario? And so I really like asking that question because oftentimes we look at scenarios where, we think to ourselves, oh, if I can only get this one thing, oh, if I can get this investment, or if I could get this job offer, if I could get this boyfriend or girlfriend, if I could get this, whatever gift, whatever it may be, this will change my life forever. And almost always it doesn't change our lives forever, but sometimes we put these things up on a pedestal. And so I like to break it down into smaller bite-sized chunks because, and by smaller bite-sized chunks, really where I'm going with this is just thinking about things in the past of things that we really wanted, but through us trying to get it, even if we got it or didn't get it, we learned something along the way. And maybe we ended up realizing that it wasn't going to deliver us the outcome that we were hoping for in the first place. And that's okay. Because what I recognize is that sometimes when it comes to career aspirations, disappointment can happen. And but as long as we're learning, as long as we're making strides to our own professional acumen and learning towards the outcomes we're trying to achieve, we can really do a lot towards improving our professional selves and yeah, and ultimately getting ourselves in a position where we're making steps in a positive direction, even if it wasn't the initial direction we wanted to go. So, anyways, the question I like to ask is, tell me a story about a time when you really wanted something, and then you ended up realizing that you didn't really want it that much, but actually wanted something else. And regardless of whether or not you got it, what did you learn from that story? So, that's a question I like to ask because it can really help a student put into perspective a time when, maybe something, not all the cards fell right, not all the dominoes fell in their direction, and that's okay. And ideally, you can share a story with them about something similar too, because then it creates a nice reciprocal relationship in the mentor relationship. The point is that these questions can get your mentee to open up to you and get out of the facade that, everything has to be perfect. I think perfection is a farce, and ultimately, there's no such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as a perfect career path. There's no such thing as like a perfect direction that we're going. Ultimately, bumps, bruises, and adversity comes to everybody. And if you're not facing bumps, bruises, and adversity, well, then you're probably not putting yourself out there enough to get rejected, to face hard times. Because if we're not putting ourselves out there to face hard times, we're not going to see the benefit of what good times can look like because we've never seen the bottom part of facing adversity. So, anyways, those are some great questions that I like to ask to help your mentee open up more to you. Before we dive into accountability, I'd love to see if anybody's got questions. Check out the chat here. Um, How often should check-ins be done with a mentee? I mean, the minimum for the program is 3 times over the course of the semester. So three 30-minute meetings. If you want to meet more frequently, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, that's something that would be how I would essentially address that. So if you're open to meeting more frequently, fantastic. But if not, and you got time constraints, that's okay as well. I'm just looking here at the chat. So my mentee, Nasilia, my mentee started out great, but she disappeared. I'm waiting to be rematched. Yeah, I would say sometimes what happens is it's not you. I mean, these are students. These are young professionals. They're figuring out their college schedule. I mean, we've facilitated thousands of mentor relationships over the 12 years we've been doing this. And what's consistent across the board is that sometimes, like, students' priorities can be frustrating. And you get a student who, signs up, starts at the beginning of the program, at the beginning of the semester, and then all of a sudden, they fall off the map. They have some quizzes or exams that come their way, and maybe they struggle to prioritize their time. All we can do as mentors is just be there for them. And even if it means that, we have to wait, or if they fall off the radar, that's okay. It's not the end of the world, and it's definitely not you. It's almost always them. So I just want to be very clear, Nasilia. You're doing great, and just keep in touch and keep following up. And I would say that's like all you can be. It's what is the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. And so, or what is it? The gosh, I can't remember the saying. It's like the teacher appears when the student arrives, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what that saying is, but it's something along the lines of people will engage when they're ready, and you just kind of gotta, you know, be there for them whenever they're ready. Yeah, so Carrie Ann, that's a good feedback. Your mentee wants to work on her time only. If you can be patient with them, that can be really helpful. Like I said, these are young professionals. They're building their acumen. They're learning about, professionalism and what to expect. So I just want to be clear. Um, Also, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions. How often? Oh yeah, we already covered that. We have one call and one email exchange. Should the next call be completed? When should the next call be completed? I mean, as long as you get your 3 calls done by December 15th, that's really all I care about. So if it's done in the next week or two, great. If you cram them all in the beginning of December, that's fine as well. Whatever you prefer is fine. Do the mentees participate in similar workshops as the mentors? Yes. So, what's cool about the mentees is that we also bring in guest speakers. So, for the student mentee program, we have workshops on how to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities, how to network in a genuine way, how to prepare for the interview, and then how to prepare for that first job or internship. And then for the alumni mentee program, we have workshops on how to transition into management, how to determine when is the right time to switch jobs, how to determine when is the right time to pursue additional education, and then how to handle conflict in the workplace. And so we bring in guest speakers for all those workshops. If you want to check them out, they're all on our YouTube channel, so you're more than welcome to check them out. And they're there. And then also on top of that, I also publish content on leadership topics and all that sort of fun stuff. So if you're interested, we post a lot of different cool topic and content on leadership and young professionals and mentorship and all that sort of fun stuff. So yes, long story short, the mentees do have workshops just like the mentors do. Oh, my mentee is almost my father's age, very much an interesting dynamic. That's cool. I mean, here's the thing. There are some non-traditional students there. And so that's okay too. I think as long as we're coming in from a perspective that we can all learn from each other, that's what's most important. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. Let's dive into the next part. So, how to help a mentee with accountability. Here are 5 questions that I like to ask to help a mentee with accountability. First question I like to ask is, when have you persisted and had it pay off for you? I'm going to post it in the chat. I love asking this question because what this question does is it helps your mentee better understand, okay, you know what? I've persisted through hard things before and it has paid off for me. I can persist through something hard right now. The second question I like to ask is, what specific actions do you need to take to meet your goal? I love to ask this question because what this does is it helps your mentee realize, okay, instead of you telling them what they need to do to complete their goal, you're helping them come up with it for themselves. And that's way more likely to be accomplished than if you just essentially told them. Three, who can help you be accountable? It could be you, but it could be a family, it could be a friend, it could be a professor, it could be anybody. But I like to ask that question because it can then help them be like, okay, shoot, I want my dad, I want my mom, I want my friend, I want my brother, I want my sister, I want my whomever to help me be accountable. Great, awesome. If you can help them identify who that person is, that's huge. Four, what systems can you put in place to help you follow through? I love to ask this question because what it does is it forces your mentee to almost have like backstops where if, oh my gosh, if I didn't hold myself accountable, then I'm, I need to make it up and not essentially make it so then it's not okay to just let these priorities and things that we want to hold ourselves accountable to fall through the cracks. And then the fifth question I like to ask, and this is to clarify its importance. What are the costs slash rewards of and of not following through on your commitments? And so the reason why that's such a critical question is because when you can clarify exactly what the costs and rewards of and of not following through on your commitments, what it does is it forces your mentee to realize, okay, this is a really important thing, and these are some serious ramifications if I don't accomplish this. Okay, Arthur, I believe my mentee doesn't seem interested, and maybe due to time zones, I believe he lives in a Central European country and had one email exchange. He said he wanted to be an entrepreneur. Um, no follow up since. Okay, we'll follow up with us at the support email, Arthur, and we'll follow up with your mentee and see what we can do and follow up. I held my mentee accountable for achieving a goal she had set out to do, and she completed it this week. Fantastic, Brittany. I love hearing that. Fantastic work. That's amazing stuff. Um, Arthur, and just to go back to that, like I said, the student arrives, or the teacher appears when the student arrives, I think is the actual statement. The point I'm getting at is, perhaps your mentee isn't ready necessarily for your guidance yet, but certainly can be over time. So, last part, 6 questions I like to ask to help a mentee broaden their perspective. First question I like to ask is, what will this situation look like to you in 10 years? So when it comes to helping someone broaden their perspective, I like to ask them, what does their situation look like to them in 10 years? The reason why I like to ask that question is because it helps and forces your mentee to realize or think to themselves like, okay, if I look at my life in 10 years, this is what it's going to look like. And this is where I need to go. Second question I like to ask, what are you willing to try that is different? And I like to ask that question because it forces your mentee to realize, like, okay, what I've been doing up to this point may not help. Like, what's worked for me to get here may not work for me to get there. And if that's the case, great. At least we can clarify that now. Third question I like to ask is, who do you respect and how might he or she approach the situation you are facing? I like to ask that question because it helps them identify a role model, a paradigm for success, and at least show them like, okay, someone that I respect can do this, I can do this too. The fourth question I like to ask is, what is your attitude about this situation? Is it helping you or hurting you? By acknowledging your attitude about a situation, you can kind of it's kind of a self it's kind of like the self slap in the face almost where you're like, dang, you know what, my attitude about this situation is not helping me. It actually might be hurting me. And at least they're acknowledging it. So as opposed to you saying, hey, your attitude's negative, that's going to make them feel probably bad about themselves. But we say, if you ask them, what is your attitude about this situation? Is it helping you or hurting you? Maybe there's some surprise things that it is helping them with. Also, maybe they're like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe I'm realizing it's not helping me right now. The fifth question I like to ask is, what is one of your greatest strengths? How can it serve you in this situation? I love to ask this question because then it helps them identify what their superpower is. And by identifying what their greatest strength is and how it can serve them in this situation, it can help them realize, like, okay, I can do this. I can broaden my perspective. I can try new things. And then the sixth question I like to ask is, what makes you curious about this issue? And I love to ask that question because ultimately it can help get down to the root core as to why your mentee is pursuing this path. Like, are they doing it because their parents want them to do this career path, or are they doing this because they want to do it for themselves? So, anyways, those are the six questions that I like to ask to help a mentee broaden their perspective. I'd love to open up for Q&A. Post in the comments if there are any questions that you have. We're going to have one more mentor workshop this semester. The fourth and final mentor workshop of the semester will be on the 19th. So in exactly 2 weeks from today. Um, Same exact time. It'll be right before the week before Thanksgiving, essentially. Um, and yeah, we'll cover the final steps for the program and yeah, and then we'll go from there. So looks like I don't see any questions. I think my colleague Jillian's been really good about answering questions in the chat. Um, but I'll wait maybe a couple more seconds. Any questions? Any questions? It looks like no. Okay, well, I just want to say again, thank you for being a mentor. I recognize students are fickle sometimes, and sometimes students are ready to go, and sometimes they need a little encouragement, and sometimes it just takes a little time for them to accept the guidance and help that, you can really help them with. But just know, by being there for them, it can have a major impact on their career outcomes and opportunities. So I guess all I'm here to say is, keep sticking with it. Recognize these are young professionals. Recognize, maybe they don't fully realize the opportunity that's in front of them. But by sticking with them, by being patient, and by helping them out, you can really help them take some serious strides in their career. So, anyways, thank you for your time, everybody. I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing y'all in a couple weeks for our final workshop of the semester. Have a wonderful